Hi, welcome to the channel. I'm going to be doing a series of videos where we're going to be deep diving into the Beatles recording sessions, not only at Abbey Road but at other recording studios as well. So if you enjoy content like that, be sure to subscribe and leave me a like and a comment. When the Beatles started out on their recording career, they had a manager called Brian Epstein, and he arranged a recording session with Decca Studios in London, and that happened on the 1st of January 1962. Paul McCartney, Pete Best, who was the original drummer, George Harrison and John Lennon walked into the studios and recorded 15 songs that were carefully selected by Brian Epstein. He thought that they would best showcase the Beatles' talents. Unfortunately for the Beatles, in February of that year, 1962, they had learned that they'd been rejected by Decca. The executives at Decca said that they sounded too much like the Shadows and that guitar groups were on their way out. Wise decision? Be the judge. Brian Epstein then approached two more studios, Pi and Oriole, who both said no. On Wednesday the 6th of June 1962, the Beatles, still with Pete Best as the drummer, first attended EMI Studios, which is now known as Abbey Road, and they first met George Martin. During these sessions, the Beatles recorded 4 songs: Love Me Do, P.S. I Love You, Bésame Mucho and Ask Me Why. After these sessions, George Martin made it clear that he didn't think Pete Best was up to the job of drumming with the Beatles. On Thursday the 16th of August, Brian Epstein sacked Pete Best. The Beatles already knew Ringo Starr. Ringo had stood in for Pete Best on a number of gigs when Pete Best couldn't make them for whatever reason. They loved Ringo's style of drumming and they asked Ringo if he would like to join the group as their drummer permanently. Obviously, Ringo said yes, and who wouldn't? They did go on to be one of the biggest bands, or maybe even the biggest band of history. Ringo was drumming for a group called Rory Storm and the Hurricanes at the time, who were on engagement in Butlins. On Monday the 3rd of September 1962, the Beatles, along with Ringo, attended EMI Studios and rehearsed between 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. in Studio 3. The evening session then began at 7 p.m. and lasted until 11:15 p.m. 2 songs were recorded at this session: a self-penned song by Lennon and McCartney called Love Me Do, and a song called How Do You Do It by Mitch Murray. If you'd like me to talk more about Mitch Murray, let me know and I can do a dedicated video. The Beatles, however, didn't like the song How Do You Do It. They felt that it didn't suit their style and it never got released. However, it was recorded and you can find this on Beatles Anthology 1. On the 11th of September, the Beatles returned to EMI Studios to record another 2 songs, Love Me Do and P.S. I Love You. Now this was the 3rd attempt to record Love Me Do. If you remember, they recorded it back on the 6th of June with Pete Best as the drummer, and then on the 3rd of September with Ringo as the drummer. During these sessions on the 11th of September, George Martin thought that Ringo Starr wasn't all that experienced in the studio, so he replaced Ringo on Love Me Do and P.S. I Love You with a session drummer called Andy White. If you'd like me to do a video about Andy White, let me know. On Love Me Do, Ringo was left playing the tambourine, and on P.S. I Love You, he played the maracas. It was decided that the Beatles' first single would be Love Me Do with P.S. I Love You as the B-side. Weirdly enough, the first singles that were pressed of Love Me Do used the version from the 3rd of September with Ringo on the drums. Later pressings of the single used the version from the 11th of September with Andy White on drums. And the Andy White version was the version that was used on the first album of the Beatles, Please Please Me. During this session, an attempt was made to record the song Please Please Me with Andy White on drums. However, this was never completed. 10 takes of P.S. I Love You were recorded that day, and 18 takes of Love Me Do were also recorded that day. The single Love Me Do was released on the 5th of October and peaked at number 17 in the record retailer chart. On Monday the 26th of November 1962, the Beatles attended EMI Studios to record Please Please Me. They completed the song in 18 takes, with the B-side being Ask Me Why. Ask Me Why was recorded in 6 takes. John Lennon and Paul McCartney played George Martin another one of their songs they had written called Tip of My Tongue. However, George Martin didn't like the song and it was never recorded by the Beatles. It was later recorded in 1963 by an artist called Tommy Quickly. The single Please Please Me was released on the 11th of January 1963 and it hit number 1 on the New Musical Express chart weekend in the 22nd of February 1963. Now by this time, 4 of the songs for their first album, Please Please Me, were already in the can. You had Please Please Me, Love Me Do, Ask Me Why and P.S. I Love You. On the 11th of February 1963, the Beatles attended EMI Studios to record 10 more songs which would make up their first album, Please Please Me. Now on this date, John was suffering with a really bad cold and he came supplied with loads of Zoobs, and I think they are the equivalent to lozenges these days, or throat soothing sweets. The first song they recorded in this session was There's a Place, and this was recorded in 10 takes. This was followed by 9 takes of a song that was first called 17, but later this was changed to I Saw Her Standing There. 7 takes of A Taste of Honey then followed, and then 8 takes of Do You Want to Know a Secret. 3 more takes of There's a Place followed, along with 3 more takes of I Saw Her Standing There. 13 takes were then done of Hold Me Tight. None of them were satisfactory and it didn't appear on the Beatles' first album, Please Please Me. However, it was re-recorded on the 12th of September 1963 and later appeared on their second album with the Beatles. 3 takes of Anna Go to Him were then recorded, and then Ringo's song Boys was recorded, which he nailed in 1 take. 4 takes of Chains were then recorded, followed by 3 takes of Baby It's You. Then finally 2 takes of Twist and Shout were recorded. The first take was the take that was actually used on the album. The second take, John's voice just couldn't hold out and it wasn't completed. The Beatles' first album, Please Please Me, was released on the 22nd of March 1963 and it held the place of best-selling album in Britain for 30 straight weeks and was only knocked off that spot by the Beatles' second album, With the Beatles. I'll be covering the recording of With the Beatles in my next video on this subject. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave me a like and a comment. I know it's different from my usual content, but it is a subject that I really enjoy, so I hope you do too. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!